I'm Zeb.
And I'm Kenzie, and a very warm welcome to this extremely special Remembrance Assembly. We are so thrilled to be joined by our very special guests in the studio today, Heathbrook Primary School, and I'm so happy to say, Zeb, we have more than 300,000 of you tuning in live on Zoom up and down the country.
Today is Armistice Day. It takes place every year to remember those who fought and died in wars all over the world. But we also remember men and women who continue to serve their countries defending our way of life. At 11 o'clock, we will join millions of people who will stop what they're doing and for 2 minutes stand in silence to show respect and honour those who've put themselves on the line to keep us safe and give us the freedom that we choose.
Now, Armistice means stop fighting, and Armistice Day marks the end of World War I when it came to an end and the fighting stopped at 11 o'clock on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. Now, it used to remember veterans from World War I and from World War II. However, today we like to keep both men and women from all conflicts in our thoughts. So let's begin by hearing from veterans who have served in both Afghanistan and in the Falklands as to why today is so very important.
My name's Nick, and when I was young I had a boyhood dream to fly helicopters. And so at the age of 17 I joined the Royal Navy and served subsequently for 33 years. I learnt to fly the Lynx and Sea King helicopters, and in 1982 went to war in the Falklands War. It's important to remember all the people and friends I lost during the Falklands War, and in particular I remember my best friend Marcus, who I used to fly a Sea King with and also played hockey with him.
Hi, I'm Dave. I served in the army. I served with the 1st Battalion Scots Guards. I also went out to Afghanistan in 2010. While out in Afghanistan, I stepped on an IED, which is a bomb. I lost both my legs and my right arm. While out in Afghanistan, I also lost a few of my friends. Remembrance for me is important so I can remember my friends who gave their lives. And anybody can remember anybody on Remembrance Day. The guys that gave their lives made this country what it is today.
Hello, my name is Olivia Steele. I served in the Royal Air Force as a logistics officer. In 2009 I was in charge of the passenger terminal at RAF Wise Norton, our largest military airport, and I bumped into an old friend. Stu and I had been in the Air Cadets together from the age of 13, and one of the things that we loved to do, was very important to us, was get involved in the Remembrance Parade through our local town. We would polish our shoes and iron our uniform. I couldn't believe I bumped into Stu again. He had joined the army, I joined the Air Force, and we'd lost contact, but we reunited, we had a big hug and reminisced about our time in the Air Cadets together. I put Stu on the aircraft that day to travel out to Afghanistan. Very sadly, in September in 2009 that year, Stu was killed. So today I'm remembering Stu, and I'm also remembering all the servicemen and women who have lost their lives in all the conflicts since World War I.
Well, how wonderful was that? And in a short while, Dave and Olivia will be joining us in the studio. So if you have any questions at all that you'd like to send in for them, please just pop them in the chat now. Now, the symbol of remembrance is the poppy, and as you can see, we've all got our poppies on in the studio today. Now, the poppy was chosen because the poppies were the first flowers to grow on the devastated battlefields after World War I. We're wearing ours proudly, and we've even got our very own poppy mugs. How lovely, Zeb.
Last year, the poet Thomas Roberts wrote a poem all about the poppy and everything that it symbolises. Here he is at the Royal British Legion's Festival of Remembrance, reading Alive with Poppies.
We meet together to remember, to pay respect and contemplate. And on each chest there grows a poppy. We remember all who came before, as through remembrance we honour them and hold that hope forevermore.
few weeks ago, Thomas ran a poetry workshop for school children.
Now it's 1915, it's 107 years ago. What does he see growing in the field?
A poppy.
Sees flowers. Why is that interesting?
It's not common for a type of flower to just grow in a lot.
We want to pay respect to the men and women in the armed forces, whether they're from Britain or from other parts of the Commonwealth. In World War I on Christmas Day, the English and the Germans stopped fighting and played a football match in no man's land. You don't have to worry about anything like rhyme or rhythm or anything like this. Just give me your first line and remember, you're trying to hook my attention.
Not pleasure, poppy flowers. Pure beautiful, bodies here, bodies there. Thank you for the sacrifices to keep us safe.
And here with us today are three pupils from Heathbrook Primary who took part in that workshop with Thomas, and they've written their very own remembrance poems. So please welcome Constance, Ashkan and Rowan.
Dead bodies and poppies. The battlefield. A strange veneer of calm due to an eerie silence caressing a once noisy and bloody area that had guns sounding every minute. Now it's just quiet. Bodies lie there, untouched, but there's life. Amongst all the sorrow and loss, poppies. A flower, beholding an essence of pure heart and love. One generation has fallen, another has come.
I kick the ball, it goes straight and high, across the ground or through the sky. Into the goal or back of the net, I can see the goalkeeper panting full of sweat. I'm glad that there is no war, so I could play football more. There was last man standing, which I enjoyed. I heard that on Christmas Day, they paused the war so they could play football. It's amazing that even though people fought, they also love my favourite sport.
There were people near 100 years ago who fought against their will. For England, yes, but others too. They lived and died just like you. The fight they fought we won't forget. The lives they lived were full of war, nothing more or less. Battling for a future they would never know. Dreaming of the hope, trying to give what they hadn't got, would never have, for next day all they knew. They could die, would die, not in vain, for the day they fall, new life begins. Poppies, blood red, grow in place, stand strong, oblivious to all the death that then took place. Or rather that because of it, they now stand there today, sending out a silent message, you are not alone. From every sorrow comes a beauty, every sadness comes a joy, and from every body grows a poppy. The war ended, but the fighting stopped not then, far from that. Wars and feuds continued to arise, and we stopped not to think. But on Remembrance Day, we think, remember those who were lost. Just take a second to recall all those that came before.
Thank you, Constance, Ashkan and Rowan. That was absolutely fantastic. Well, now it's time for our special Remembrance Day song, which I know you have all been practicing. And to join us in the studio to lead the singing is Jasmine Faulkner. And this is very exciting. Joining us from the Royal Albert Hall are the fabulous military musicians, where they're rehearsing for tomorrow night's Festival of Remembrance. So, if we're all ready, let's stand. That was wonderful. Well done, all of you. Well, so far we've heard about people who've served and sacrificed in the armed forces, but there are many different ways of serving your country. Think of people who work in the police force, or for the fire service, or for those who serve on lifeboats, rescuing people far out at sea. Well, I'm joined now by Rohit Saghu. Now, Rohit, tell me how you serve.
So we served during the pandemic, so we gave COVID-19 vaccines to the Sikh community, as well as giving food parcels to the homeless and tending to the healthcare of the homeless as well throughout the whole pandemic as well.
Now, that must have been particularly challenging, working with that community and persuading them how important those healthcare messages were.
Yes, it was all about busting the myths around COVID-19 vaccine, reassuring our communities and especially the South Asian community that the vaccine was not harmful in any respect at all. So it's really about sending that message across the community and engaging and accessing the community.
So tell me what Remembrance means for you.
Remembrance means a lot to me. You know, it's about all of those who have fallen and all of those who have sacrificed their lives just for us. And I think part of it in terms of the faith perspective of Sikhism is, you know, you have selfless service with it as well. And there's lots of people that have, you know, laid down their lives for selfless service. So that's one of the main reasons that I do my work as a nurse for the community.
There's a special word for that selfless service, isn't there?
Yes, it's called seva. So, and it's a Punjabi word called seva, and it's within the tenets of the Sikh religion.
Well, Rohit, thank you very much indeed for sharing your story with us.
Yes, lovely to have you here, Rohit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, especially for us, Pipe Major Stephen Bennett of the Scots Guards will play Flowers of the Forest. Now, this is a traditional Scottish lament which is often played at remembrance ceremonies for those who have died in war. Wow, thank you so much, Major Stephen.
I
Wasn't that
love
fantastic?
bagpipes, and you can't appreciate just how loud that was here.
Oh, it was wonderful, wasn't it? And I'm delighted to say we're joined now by Dave and Olivia. Dave, as ex-Scots Guards, that must have been particularly moving for you.
It is. Every time I hear the bagpipes, it sends like butterflies all the way through me.
Yeah.
So amazing.
It really gives you, you know, that hairs on the back of your neck moment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really special. And Dave, it would be great to hear if you could share your story and of course, what happened to you in Afghanistan.
So back in 2010, I went over to Afghanistan, and on the 27th of May, we went on a foot patrol, and I stepped on an IED. I lost both my legs and my right arm.
My goodness.
And, well, how much of a memory do you have of the actual moment of impact?
I remember it all like it was yesterday. So when it happened, I was conscious through it all, and I looked down, and my legs were completely gone.
Gosh.
And looked at my arm, and that was just unsavable.
And Olivia, I think you've met before. You also served in Afghanistan.
I did, yes, and when Dave and I first met, we had a conversation about 2010, and we established that I was also there when Dave arrived in Afghanistan. And with quite good certainty, I probably took him off his aircraft when he arrived.
Wow.
Amazing.
Amazing. I imagine it's quite special to be here with us in the studio together today. Now, you might remember earlier I asked those of you tuning in on Zoom to send us in your questions for Dave and Olivia, and we've got some really brilliant ones here, and we'll start with this one from Josh. Olivia, we'll give this one to you. Now, Josh has said, who should we remember if we don't know anyone in the armed forces?
That's a great question, and I think it's really important to remember that people in the armed forces are brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and friends, and they live in the towns that you live in and the villages that you live in. And if you would like to meet somebody who is served in the armed forces, then go to Remembrance Parade on Sunday and find somebody in uniform or somebody wearing some medals and just go and talk to them.
Dave, I've got a question here from Tom, and he says, what does the poppy mean to you?
The poppy means a lot to me, because I've lost friends over in Afghanistan, and that's my way of remembering them and just remembering them and saying thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. And a question here from Sarah. Why did you join the armed forces?
Well, I was 13, I joined the Air Cadets, and it was a fantastic organisation, lots of really exciting activities, and I enjoyed it, and started to investigate how I could continue doing it. And I went through university, and as soon as I finished, I joined the Air Force straight away.
And Dave, what about you? What was your story?
Well, I joined the army because when I left school, I wasn't really the kind of guy to sit behind a computer and work a 9 to 5. I wanted to get out there and do a lot. So I joined the army, and that's what I've always wanted to do.
You're a more hands-on sort of guy.
Yeah, I am.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Dave and Olivia, very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, there are lots of different ways that we remember those that have served, but a very common way is memorials. We see them in towns and cities up and down the country. You've probably got a memorial in the town or village where you live.
Yes, indeed. Now, Major Naveed Mohammed visited the Armed Forces Memorial, where all those have died since the end of the Second World War are commemorated.
At the heart of the National Memorial Arboretum is the Armed Forces Memorial. It's a focal point for remembrance for the nation. It's a place where over 16,000 names are carved into stone, a place where families, comrades, friends and visitors can come and pay their respects and recognize the selfless commitment, the courage, the discipline, the loyalty shown by those who have given their life in service of this country. Remembrance means many things to different people. When I come here, there are two names which resonate with me in particular. Corporal Jabran Hashmi and Corporal Peter Thorpe were killed in Afghanistan in 2006. Like me, one was a Muslim, and like me, one served in the Royal Corps Signals. In Devon, Henry and Daniel have been recognizing the service and sacrifice of men in their community.
This is the memorial in my village where my brother and I live. We've been learning about some of the names on the memorial. One of the names is Thomas Lytton, and he died in 1916 when his ship, HMS Defence, was hit and sank at the Battle of Jutland, a huge naval battle. 900 other sailors from the ship died at the same time.
The Bouncy brothers, two brothers like us, also died.
We will remember the men of Limestone.
Remembrance can be marked in so many different ways. For example, at a place such as this, the Remembrance Glade provides a wonderful place for some quiet contemplation.
Now take a look at this. It's a really unusual memorial. It was once a toilet, yes, also known as a thunderbox. And my mother had a thunderbox in the back garden of the house in which she grew up. In August 1914, the gardeners at Heligan House in Cornwall signed their names on the wall of the toilet before going off to fight in the First World War. Today, the signatures are very faint. You can only just see a few names. 13 Heligan men went to fight, and only 9 of them died. You can see the names there to this very day, and it's been recognised as a living memorial by the Imperial War Museum.
Yes, and this memorial is hundreds of miles away from Heligan in Brixton, here in London. And there is a memorial for the men and women from Africa and the Caribbean who sadly lost their lives in both World Wars.
Well, we're joined now by the Stone Lake family, Mark, Donna, and Olivia, Grace and Molly. Thank you very much for being with us. And you are a service family.
Yes, indeed. And Donna, I'd love to start with you first. I know you served in the Navy, but it doesn't just impact you, it's the whole family, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why this assembly is so important, because it recognises, and the children can recognise actually why their parents are away. They sacrifice so much, their parents are often away for long periods of time without being able to talk to them. So it's great that we can come together and remember actually why they're away, what they do, and understand why they're away.
Mark, why is it important for you to remember?
It's important because all the people that have served, past and present, you know what they've given this country. And I think it's only 2 minutes. You've got so much to think about, all the past wars, present wars, and just take the time to really think about all the stuff they've done for us, you know, and just gratitude, really, that we're here, we stay as a free country, free nation, because of these brave men and women.
Now, some of you here were telling me that you feel that 2 minutes is a really long time. Molly, what will you be thinking about during those 2 minutes?
I'll be thinking about that there's a ton of people risking their lives for their town and for other people around them, so you just need to think about what they've done, and it's only 2 minutes. You just need to give up 2 minutes of your life for them.
And Grace, what would you like to say to people watching at school about what they could be thinking of during those 2 minutes?
I feel like you should remember people that fought for our country from the armed forces, and they go away for their families and sometimes miss their child's birthdays at Christmas to fight for us, which I think is really important.
It is so important, isn't it? And Mark, is there anyone that you think about in particular?
There is, like people that obviously out in Afghanistan, and one of the other lads, there's Frankie Vaughan, he got really badly injured, and just like the lads out on patrols with us, they're brave men and women, you know, all of them. They're given, some have paid the price, ultimate price, but others have injuries like limbs missing, but others have like mental conditions, unfortunately, because of the wars and stuff, and you can't escape your mind. So I think it's very important just to pay respects for them guys as well, you know, show their gratitude, because they've given all of it. Them scars will stay with them throughout life, you know, they never go day in, day out after battle. So just gratitude really for what they've done, what they've given to us.
It's very important indeed that we remember, isn't it? And it's a joy to have you with us in the studio, Stone Lake family. Thank you so much. But it is very nearly 11 o'clock and we're about to join the ceremony being held at the Armed Forces Memorial, where a bugler will play the last post, which will be followed by a 2-minute silence. And at the end of the silence, we will all say, we will remember them.
So now, let us all stand, united across all faiths, cultures and backgrounds, to remember the service and sacrifice of those in the armed forces from Britain and from the Commonwealth, the emergency services and all those who protect our way of life.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Remember them. Well, thank you for joining us at our assembly. We will remember them. Well, thank you so much for joining us at our very special Assembly of Remembrance today. We've heard directly from people who serve their country and those affected by war. It's important to remember, and we will continue to remember. Thank you to all of our musicians as well who have helped to make our assembly so very special, Zeb.
Thank you. Remembrance can feel like a sad day because it's a day when we remember everybody whose lives have been affected by war. Some of those wars are even taking place today. But it's also a hopeful time when we can think about all of us working together for a more peaceful future. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Goodbye.
Quiet, this is unknown.